Welcome everyone to this webinar called Tracking Your Business Finances. This is being sponsored by the Maine Small Business Development Center. And my name is Tina Oddleifson, and I am a small business advisor with the SBDC, and I work out of the Portland office at USM. I cover Cumberland and York counties, and I also co-advise in other parts of the state. So like you, I was a small business owner for 12 years, and I really had to learn a lot about small business finance and tracking my business. So we're here today to talk about the various different options in the marketplace for you to do that. For those of you who may not be familiar with the SBDC, we are part of a national organization that has a chapter in every state. The program's been around for almost 50 years. We are under the umbrella of the SBA, so we receive federal funding. We also receive funding from the state of Maine, and we're hosted by the University of Southern Maine. And basically the core of what we do is one-on-one advising with small businesses. And but we also have webinars like this. We have e-courses through our website and lots of various resources to help you, as well as a newsletter that comes out every month, which I really encourage you to sign up for because there's lots of important announcements that are relevant to you in that newsletter. And the topics that you see on the screen are really topics that we talk a lot about, but if you have questions and we can't answer them, we will find a resource for you. And just a few housekeeping things. Also disclosure. We are not lawyers, accountants, or tax preparers. So at various times in your journey as a small business owner, you do need to pay for these services. And we are here for informational purposes and educational purposes. But if you get to a point where you really need to be talking to an accountant or a tax preparer or a lawyer, we'll let you know. So today, just a few things for you to know. This webinar is being recorded and it will get posted on our YouTube channel, which is public. So if you don't want to risk the chance of getting seen, you might want to turn off your video. You will get sent slides and also some additional resources from this presentation in a follow-up email within a week from us. And if you have questions along the way, please put them in the chat. I will take a look at them and try to answer them as we go along, but we should also have a few minutes at the end for some additional questions. So what are we here to talk about? We're here to talk about tracking your business, and we're going to really kind of review why we do it, which may seem like an obvious question, but for some it might not be. We're going to look at what exactly bookkeeping is, and then what systems might be available to you, and what is going to be the best fit for your business. So we're going to look at a lot of different options. But the first question is, why do we do this? And you might not be aware, but it's really the law. If you own a business and you make a profit of $400 or more, you are required to tell the IRS about that. And you're also required to be able to back up what you report to the IRS. So it's really goes part and parcel with owning a business. You really do need to do this. It's tax season right now, which is oftentimes a really stressful time for people. And by developing a formal system to track your business, it's going to make tax prep so much easier and also a lot cheaper. If you go to an accountant and you give them all of your receipts and paperwork and expect them to put it all together for you, that can be quite expensive. And truthfully, a lot of people won't even do that anymore. So you want to have a system in place where you can just present everything in a summarized form. And one of the most important reasons in my mind is it's because bookkeeping gives us the financial reports that you absolutely need to have in order to manage your business. Finance is the language of business, and financial reports are what we use to make everyday decisions in our business to achieve greater profitability. And everybody, starts a business for all kinds of different reasons, often because they have a passion about something, but for a lot of people, and for most people, it's also their source of income for their personal life. And, you know, we all want to be successful at doing that. And finally, if you ever intend to apply for a loan, or some grants are still out there, or have people invest in your business, you need to have up-to-date, accurate financial reports in order to apply for these things. During COVID, there was a lot of grants available for businesses. Those have largely dried up, but what was really tough to see is that people who did not have these required financial reports were unable to access that funding. So it's really important that you do set up some kind of a system. So how do we do it? We do it through bookkeeping, and bookkeeping is just the practice of tracking and recording the financial transactions of a business. And in bookkeeping, I think of it as just a massive organizational system. And when we talk about financial transactions, what we're talking about is anything that impacts the value of your business. So when you make a sale and you get money from a customer, when you pay a bill, when you take out a loan, when you run payroll, when you buy large equipment or real estate, those are all things that impact your business value. And that's what a financial transaction is. Most of the time, all of these things are coming through your bank accounts, your credit card accounts, your loan accounts. And that's what we're recording and we're organizing when we talk about bookkeeping. So in bookkeeping, as I said, it's just a really large kind of organizational system with different rules. And we track transactions using a system of accounts. And a way to think about accounts is they're just like categories or buckets of information. And these first three, there's 6 major accounts, and the first 3 are ones you're probably familiar with. It's income. When you sell something and the money comes into your business, that's income. If you have a product related business in particular, you're also tracking a category of accounts called costs of goods sold. And that's the direct costs involved in getting your product into the marketplace. Service businesses also occasionally track cost of goods sold, but it is most associated with products businesses. And it's a type of expense, but we separate it out so that we can do some additional analysis of how efficient you are at creating your product. And then there's expenses. We track our expenses, we report them on an annual basis to the IRS. And the IRS has some very specific rules about what is an expense, because ultimately the profit of your business is what is getting taxed. So the IRS has some rules about what you can do to reduce that taxable profit. According to the IRS, expenses are necessary and ordinary costs of running a business. And every industry has kind of some specific expenses that are unique to them. They're also a way to think about it. It's things that get used up over the course of a year to run your business. So that's the first set of accounts. The second set of accounts are assets, liabilities, and equity. And we track those in a way, assets are basically anything that has value into the future. So it's not an expense when you buy an asset. And assets are big things like real estate and large pieces of equipment. They're also the balances in your bank accounts. Those are all assets and they have value going forward. Liabilities are just things that you owe to other people. So it's your loans, credit card balances, accounts payable, which is just when you buy things but you haven't paid the bill yet. And then finally, there's equity. And equity is probably the thing that might be most confusing to people, but the easiest way to think about what equity is to think about it as the net worth of your business. If you've ever heard that term with people, if you're a person and you have assets like a home or a car, if you sold all of that off and you use that money to then pay off all of your loans, whatever you're left with is called net worth, and it's the same thing in a business. That's what equity is. It's your portion of those assets that are left over essentially after you pay your liabilities. And we track that inside accounting through some very specific things. Like when you start a business and you put your own money into the business, you invest in your business, that's equity. When you take money out to pay yourself, that's also, you're reducing equity. So that's an equity account. It's called an owner's draw. Your accumulated profit or loss over time also impacts equity. So 6 major accounts that we are tracking when we talk about tracking your business. And ultimately what we're after are financial reports. And that's where each of those buckets, each of those categories, each of those accounts gets summarized and presented on a financial report. And there's 2 major financial reports that we're talking about. The first is a profit and loss statement. It's also known as an income statement. And that's the one we run over a period of time. We run it for a month or for a quarter or for a year because we have to report to the IRS. And the accounts that show up on that statement are income, cost of goods sold, and expenses. The balance sheet is run at a point in time, like today. Today, what's your business worth? And that's where we look at the assets of a business, the liabilities of a business, and the equity of business. And that's ultimately what we want. That's the fun part of accounting, because it's giving you this great information to manage your business. So the other big part of tracking your business is keeping track of what are called source documents. Because under the law, you are required to be able to back up what you tell the IRS. So if you're ever audited, you need to get the detail behind your numbers to prove your numbers. And that stuff comes from point of sale reports, invoices you give to customers, deposit slips, bills you get from vendors, receipts that you get when you buy stuff for your business, your payroll reports, your mileage reports, your bank statements, your loan statements, your credit card statements. It's all of that data needs to be organized so that you can access it easily and say, oh, yes, that was an allowable expense, or yes, that's actually what came into my business for revenue. So that's the other big part of tracking. You need a system that has the ability to do that. And I've had clients say, well, I've got my bank statements, I've got my credit card statements, isn't that enough? And it's not enough, because those things tell you maybe how much you spent or how much came in, but it doesn't give you the detail to prove that that was an accurate business expense, for example. So that bank statements, credit card statements are not enough. So that's the other side of accounting, is source documents. Oops. So we're going to walk through different ways that you can do this, and then we're going to go online and take a look at some. But the first one I just want to put out there is a paper system. And, just like the picture shows, you can go to Staples and buy ledgers and journals. And the only advantage I see of that is that, if you are not someone that does technology at all, or you have internet problems, it can be a system, but it is not one that I recommend. In this day and age, there are so many better sources to track your business. And the disadvantage here is actually paper accounting requires some pretty in-depth bookkeeping knowledge, because there's certain ways that you put numbers into journals and ledgers, and you have to know how to do it. So if you don't, this is probably not a good system. It's often prone to mistakes. It's very time consuming. It doesn't get you those nice, neat financial statements you get at a click of a button with other systems. You still need to create a system to keep your source document. So I'm mentioning it here because it is available, but it's not something I would ever recommend. So that brings us to spreadsheets. So spreadsheets are a step up from doing paper bookkeeping, and they can work in certain situations. And some of the advantages is that you can do this for free. You can get yourself a Google account and set up a Google Sheet and track and set up a system to track your business. So it's better than paper. It doesn't have the functionality that you're going to get out of software programs, like the ability to produce and send invoices, doing payroll. running sales reports. So it's not really an option that grows with your business, but it can be a good option for someone who is like a solopreneur. It's only you. You have very few transactions. You don't have employees. It might be something like a consultant could use. It could be something if you just have a business you're running as a side gig. So it does have its benefits. And I'm just going to pop out of the presentation and show you a couple just to give you a sense of what it might look like. So hang on. So with spreadsheets, what you can do is you could set up a spreadsheet where you have columns for every month, and you can run your accounts basically on the left-hand side and put in numbers as you go along. One group of people this can work for, as I said, are sole proprietors or single member LLCs, because you are using a tax form called a Schedule C. And what I have done for clients in the past is set this up, and I follow the accounts that are on a Schedule C. So these are coming directly off of the tax form that you might be using. The cost of goods sold, these are just kind of examples of what cost of goods is, but you'll see lines on the Schedule C for cost of goods. Then you'll see lines for very specific types of expenses. And then a lot of people use the other expense section of the Schedule C to report everything else. So this is a functional tool that you just are putting in things as you go along, and then you add it up at the end and you've got all your numbers. And because the Schedule C only essentially is asking for a profit and loss statement, this can work. I've also come across a spreadsheet that I purchased that was pretty sophisticated, and I'm happy to share where I got this. But basically what this does is a very similar thing, just much more detail, where it has every month of the year. It gives you a place to add money coming into your business, money going out of your business, your cost of goods sold. And at the end, it does actually create a profit and loss statement for you by month and a balance sheet. So if you really want to stick with using a spreadsheet, this, something like this you can find. The only issue with this is you would really need to make sure that the formulas are correct, because this is much more open to potential mistakes in the calculations, and you would really want to work through them and make sure that they were accurate. But for some people, this might be a good option. So those are spreadsheets. And then the next option that we're talking about here, just get back in my present mode, is software. So, a lot of people use bookkeeping software, and we're going to go into what some of those options are. But the pros is that it's fast and it's automated. You also get professional financial reports at a click of a button. You can run all kinds of additional reports, like your sales by location or your by customer. Most bookkeeping software is also offering lots of additional functions, like the ability to send invoices and have people pay the invoice through the software. You can track inventory. There's another benefit is most of this software is subscription based and online, which means that your accountant can also access it remotely. Most of the programs come with phone apps that track your mileage and upload directly into the software. They come with the ability to, if you're at a store buying something and you open the app, you can take a picture of a receipt and that uploads into the software. And also in bookkeeping software, you can attach source documents to each transaction. So it becomes all of your backup for your numbers is right there. And generally speaking, it doesn't require a deep knowledge of bookkeeping. It's really designed for small business owners. But the drawbacks of this are definitely the cost, because most of bookkeeping software in the market today has gone to subscription-based, models. You're paying every month and you're paying every year. There are still some possibilities to download desktop software, but those options are getting phased out of the marketplace. So cost can be a barrier. You obviously need a good internet connection, and it does require some training. You don't want to buy bookkeeping software and then just wing it, because you can definitely get yourself into trouble. And I have seen people get themselves into a lot of trouble where they end up having numbers that are wildly inaccurate, which really can mess up their management and also their taxes. So you want to make sure you get some training. And we're going to go into what some of these are in a moment. And then the final option is that you hire a bookkeeper. So the benefits of this is that you're going to get professional and accurate financial reports. It's going to be a ton less work for you. And most people who do bookkeeping also offer tax preparation, or they work with an accountant who does. So there's, some really good reasons to hire a bookkeeper. The drawbacks is that it's expensive. You're going to spend several $1,000s a year with this option. You also have a lot less control over your own books. I've seen situations where, a business owner needs to have an up-to-date financial report immediately, and their bookkeeper is 2 months behind in doing their entries. Some bookkeepers actually restrict the amount of access that you, the business owner, can have in the books, because they want to make sure that the integrity of the entries is maintained. And also overall, it's, if you rely entirely on a bookkeeper, you have less understanding of what's happening in your own business. And you are still responsible for your books and for signing your own tax returns. So there are some drawbacks here. So when I talk to people about hiring bookkeepers, I think the best setup is really a hybrid situation where you have full access to your software, you categorize your own transactions, and then your bookkeeper comes in and does some of the more formal entries like depreciation, which requires, bookkeeping knowledge, or they look for errors, or they reconcile your bank and credit card statements for you, and they act as a resource to you. And that can be not only less expensive, but also you just have so much more control. So that's another option out there. So how do you decide what you should be using? There is not a one-size-fits-all option. It's really all over the place. And as we just went through, it's paper, it's spreadsheets, it's you using software entirely on your own, hiring a bookkeeper, or doing a hybrid kind of situation with a bookkeeper. So the first thing you need to do is really assess what you need. And the first question you want to ask yourself is, what is your entity type? Because different entities have different tax reporting requirements. So as I mentioned, a sole proprietor or a single member LLC, you do a tax form called a Schedule C. And that essentially is just a profit and loss statement that you're giving to the IRS. If you're a partnership, whether you're incorporated or not, whether you're just, 2 or more people working together, or you have a multi-member LLC, you do a tax form called a 1065. It's a partnership tax return. And on that tax return, you have to report balance sheet accounts. So that means you need to be tracking, your assets, your liabilities, and your equity. So you're going to need a system that does that for you. So that's your first question to yourself. The second is you just want to think about what your business needs and what industry you're in. So do you need to track inventory? Do you send out invoices to people? Those are some fundamental questions that are going to drive what system you choose. The third major part is what integrations you need. And this is where some of the options in the marketplace are getting really confusing, because a lot of the accounting software in the marketplace has the ability to integrate with other applications, just like your phone does. And some of the options out there are getting really complicated. But some of the things you want to ask yourself is how you do payroll. Who are you using for payroll, and will their system integrate with the accounting system? Another big thing that people do is they take credit cards and they have credit card processors. Will that software integrate with the software that you want to choose for accounting? So those are some other things. Also, people use a lot of industry-specific software. So if you're an architect or a designer or a therapist, you often have very specific industry software that you're using to track clients and to track projects, and you want to ask, does that integrate? And if it doesn't integrate, that's okay too. It just means that you need to design a complete system of different software options. And we'll get into that in a little bit. So then another thing is you basically want to understand, look at the size of your business and the complexity of your business. And if you're a more established business, you need to have a more, robust accounting system. You also want to think about your plans for growth. If you're just going to stay as a solopreneur and you're just going to do your own thing, you have no plans to hire staff or to, expand your revenue streams, then you might be able to stick with something really simple. But if your plan is to grow, it's better to start with a software program that's going to grow with you rather than start with a spreadsheet and then move to a software program. And finally, you want to ask your accountant. If you work with an accountant to do your taxes at the end of the year, or obviously a bookkeeper, you really want to make sure that you're using the software that they use. And sometimes accountants can actually sell you software at a reduced price, and they may have some very specific requests for the type that you're using. So don't go out and purchase anything before you've talked to your accountant. So that's a general way to kind of sit and assess what you need. As I said, the options out there are paper, it's spreadsheets, and then essentially we get into software, whether you're doing some of that with the help of a bookkeeper or not, that it's software that we're talking about to track your business. So I'm going to walk through some of the top options in the US marketplace and kind of just generally give you my thoughts about them. And then I also have a spreadsheet where I've broken it down into a lot of detail based on pricing and what some of the software is best for, that I will also show you and send you. So we're going to start with QuickBooks because you've probably heard of it. QuickBooks is a US-based company that has 80% of the US market share for small business software. And that doesn't mean that you should use it, but it does mean that most accountants and bookkeepers know QuickBooks. It also means that there's a lot of support for QuickBooks. There's some of which is entirely free. There's YouTube channels devoted to QuickBooks. There's online support groups devoted to QuickBooks. So tons of support in this industry for QuickBooks in the United States. QuickBooks has two major types of software. The first one is called QuickBooks Solopreneur. It used to be called QuickBooks Self-Employed. It's designed especially for people who do work on their own. They do their own estimated taxes. It provides a lot of guidance when it comes to what are allowable expenses. If you don't have a separate business bank account, which I always recommend that you do, but if you don't and you're using your own personal bank account, there's a way to separate personal from business inside their software. So it's really designed for, the single person. The second major group of software that they offer is called QuickBooks Online. And there are 4 major levels of the software that begin with a simple version and go up to an advanced version. And the more you go up that scale, the more functions you get and the more expensive it is. So those are 4 major types. The second major company I want to mention is Wave. Wave is a Canadian-based company that is owned by H&R Block. And the reason I mention Wave is I often suggest it for people who want to go one level up from a spreadsheet, but are not really in a position to be paying for software, because Wave has a free version. It's better than a spreadsheet. It started off as an invoicing app that now has a full, robust double entry accounting system. And but it is limited in its functionality, and support is limited for the free version. It does integrate, though, with taxes done by H&R Block. There's a way to export your data into your tax forms and use H&R Block as your tax preparer. So there's some advantages there. Another one you may have seen in the marketplace, and I haven't used it personally, but it's called FreshBooks, and it's a Canadian-based company. It's also a very good option for solopreneurs, like QuickBooks and Wave. It's limited functionality at this lower level, not as robust as some of the other options, but you might come across it and really like the interface, and it might be a good option for you. Another major one that we are seeing more and more in the United States is called Xero. And this is a New Zealand-based company. It's widely used in Australia and Europe, and it's gaining traction in the United States. I know that there are accountants in Maine that use Xero, and they ask their clients to use Xero. It's really very comparable to QuickBooks. It's got a very, people talk a lot about the ease of use, and it is slightly less expensive, but not so much so that I would say it's, to be getting the software because of price. It's not that hugely different than QuickBooks, but you might be asked to use that by your accountant. And then the final one I want to mention is called Zoho Books. This is an Indian-based company that's gaining traction as well in the US, Canada, and Japan. It's especially good if you use any other apps by Zoho, and it is apparently very good for mobile users. It's got a really good phone app and a very easy interface. The drawback, I think, with Zoho is it's actually a little bit complicated. So I'm just mentioning it because you may run across it. So another thing to realize, and as I mentioned, this landscape of software in the marketplace is getting more and more complicated because lots of players are jumping into this market, and they're coming from different places. For example, TD Bank now offers a way to track your business through some online software that they are offering. And then industry software that's really customer management related, that offers invoicing and customer tracking and project tracking, also is entering this marketplace and offering some lightweight accounting options. Just be aware that there's lots of apps, and you want to think through what apps are you using, and do they integrate with your accounting software, or is there an easy way to manage all of those apps together as you manage your business? So what I wanted to do is, first of all, show you the spreadsheet I put together on accounting software for you that I will be sending you. And it's a spreadsheet that compares each of them. It gives you the cost per month and the annual cost, and talks a little bit about what they're good for and some pros and cons of all of them. And also each of these will link over to the companies that make them. I'll also mention that when you go to these companies and you look at the options, they all offer these what look like excellent deals. They'll give you 3 months free, or they'll give you, a big discount for one reason or another. I would suggest that you not base your decision to purchase the software based on those discounts, because they go away quickly, and the annual cost can be significant. So you want to really look at that. So I'll be sending you this spreadsheet, but I think it's too much detail to go into in the course of this webinar. But what I'd also like to do is show you a couple of online options. And we're going to go into QuickBooks and we're going to go into Wave. QuickBooks has an online dummy account that you can go into. If you just Google QuickBooks test drive, you'll get a link for it. And it's a good way to go in and just walk around in the software and kind of understand what it is and what you're doing with it. So this goes into this fake company called Craig's Design and Landscaping Service. And all of these options, as I mentioned, are subscription based. So that means you go to their website, you sign up for an account, you give them your credit card, and they bill you monthly. And then when you want to go access your books, you're just going to go to their website and log in with your credentials, just like you do with a bank. As I mentioned, this has made accounting software a lot more expensive for people. There are still a lot of people who are using the desktop version of QuickBooks. And if you have that and you want to keep using it, then keep using it because it is being phased out. All of these companies has essentially realized that it's much better for them to get subscription based. And also there's advantages to having web-based software. And that's really the direction that this is all moving. So this is QuickBooks Online. And basically the way most of this software works is you set up these accounts and then you connect your bank accounts, your credit card accounts, your loan accounts, and the transactions flow into the software and they sit in a holding area basically. And you go in there and you start assigning them categories or accounts. And once you do that, it's in this thing called for review area here. And once you do that, they end up on your financial reports. That's basically essentially how all this software works. But what they all offer so many more things. So for example, in QuickBooks, you have the ability to send emails to your customers with invoices attached to them. You can do your payment processing through QuickBooks. So you can, in that email, there can be a button that your customer can click on. They can pay their invoice directly, and then it goes directly into your books. You can track all of your customers. You can have you can basically have a list of all of your customers and all of their information. You can look up all of your contact data for all of your customers. You can there's additional functionality like QuickBooks offers an app that you download to your phone. And then when you're driving, you can track your mileage and that uploads directly into the software. You can use the app to take pictures of receipts and you can attach your source documents directly into the software. You can forward receipts from other places like your Google accounts. And then you can also purchase payroll through QuickBooks. And obviously the reports, like we said, that's ultimately what we're after. And you run a balance sheet, which is one of the major financial reports you're trying to create. And that's what one looks like. And same with your profit and loss. And that's what one looks like. And that's essentially the data you need to report to the IRS and to manage your business. Let's see. There's budgeting functions for some of the upper levels of QuickBooks. There's a lot you can do in this software. So you can also, as I mentioned, you can assign or you can give your accountant access. So you can, if you have questions, you can communicate with your accountant through the software. So lots and lots of functionality. So that's QuickBooks. I also wanted to show you Wave. And Wave, as I said, they have a free version. They do have really excellent documentation for accounting, and they explain it to you in an easy way. So I really like that about Wave. But basically, you can sign up for a free account. So I signed up for one. and it takes you into a screen that's not too different from QuickBooks. You have your dashboard area that gives you kind of a summary of your business. I don't have anything in here, so you can't see too much. There's an accounting section where you go to your transactions, just like you do in QuickBooks, and you assign them categories or accounts. The way that the software does make money is they sell you additional functionality, like payroll is one big thing that they offer, and processing, payment processing. And then, as I mentioned, a lot of you I know probably use H&R Block to help you with taxes. So you can then pay to export your data out of this for $85 to do your taxes yourself, and then $45 to do your state taxes, or you can actually get help from an individual online and do your taxes that way. So I just wanted to show you those so you just get a sense of how these things work. But that is essentially the presentation. I know I've covered a lot of information and would love to open it up to questions. And I'm also very happy to meet with anybody individually to talk about your particular situation and what might be the best solution for you. And as I said, sometimes that solution is just a simple spreadsheet. So it really depends on what you need. And then it can get very complicated from there on these integrations. And, you know, sometimes you need to talk to somebody about what the best solution for you might be. So I'm just going to pop back into our presentation, and if you do have questions, please put them in the chat, and I'm happy to answer any. Or you're also welcome to unmute yourself and ask a question if that's easier. All right. So we've got, someone says, I'm currently using Square for sending invoices to clients. Square takes over 3% of it. Does Wave charge for invoicing? So you're probably paying Square for your payment processing, unless you're saying you're getting an additional charge for invoices. And if you want to take yourself off of mute, you can tell me. Everybody who does payment processing obviously has to pay fees to do that. And typically 3% is pretty average. You're going to get that for most payment processing, including QuickBooks. So, and the same with Wave. If you decided to purchase payment processing through Wave, then it'll be about 3%. Some of these software programs, the way they work is they actually charge you for the invoices you create. There's a limit to the amount you can create. QuickBooks, as you go up the scale of QuickBooks options, you're paying for more functionality. With some of the other ones, you're paying for the number of invoices you can send per month. So you really want to investigate that. But Meredith did say it's credit card payment processing, and yes, 3% is pretty average. You can look at different options. I have a lot of clients that use Square, you know, depending on what you're doing. In QuickBooks, you can, and it depends on your business, but in QuickBooks, you can also elect to only allow e-checks, you know, for people to basically send you money through their bank account, and that's just 1%. So it depends what your business is all about. Anybody else? Anybody using software right now and thinking of switching over to a different program, or using a spreadsheet and thinking of switching to software? It doesn't, let's see. Do any of these programs automatically assign categories to their expenses? Yes, absolutely. So QuickBooks uses artificial intelligence, and what happens is there's thousands and thousands of people using this software, and QuickBooks in the beginning, when you first set it up, will suggest categories. Oftentimes they are wildly inaccurate, and the way it works is once you start assigning these categories, QuickBooks gets to know you because it's using artificial intelligence. And the next time something comes through your bank feed, it will say, oh, last time you assigned this to office supplies, is that what this is this time? And there are ways to set up rules inside of QuickBooks and also these other programs where you say, you set up a rule that says every time something comes from Staples, I want you to assign it to office supplies, and I want you to automatically add it into my book so you don't even see it come through. There is a great danger in doing that because sometimes you really need to see those things coming through your bank feed because it might alert you to a problem, but you certainly can auto categorize things. And as I said, after time goes by, QuickBooks gets to know you and they just automatically assign things. So the concept behind this online software and connecting it to your bank accounts and your credit card accounts is you can literally auto categorize things in just minutes and get them into your books. Okay, someone else said, I use QuickBooks Self-Employed in the past. My new business will have inventory and payroll, so I'm looking to upgrade to something else. Yeah, so QuickBooks has these 4 levels. It starts with Simple Start. Unfortunately, with the self-employed, or what they're now calling solopreneur, you can't go from that software into the other QuickBook options. You're gonna have to start new at one of the levels of QuickBooks Online. And that's something to think about. You know, if you choose QuickBooks Self-Employed, but you intend to grow, you might want to do start with a lower level of QuickBooks Online. The inventory option in QuickBooks is QuickBooks Online Plus. It's more expensive. So I have worked with clients who might manage inventory outside of QuickBooks on a different platform and then just do their accounting inside of QuickBooks. So it depends on costs, but yeah, you'll need to upgrade. Let's see. Is there any sort of deal or rules attached to using a credit card solely for business expenses? Should I get another one? I'm not exactly sure what the question is, but if you're using a personal credit card for business expenses, you should get a business credit card. If you have an LLC, it's really important that you don't mix personal and business into the same accounts because you can jeopardize your liability protection. So Cece, if you want to explain a little bit more, I might be able to answer that more, answer what you're actually asking if that didn't do it. Christine said, if I were to start with the free Wave software, would it be difficult to switch over to QuickBooks later? It's a really good question, and I've thought about that a lot too. You could do Wave, you could get your reports out of Wave, you could use it for a while. And then if you wanted to switch over to QuickBooks, obviously you would have to set up a whole new program. And if you were to do that, I would say go through an entire year and do your taxes and then switch over. It won't be too difficult. You'll know what kinds of accounts you have, but yes, you would have to set it up again. Cece, yes, there are actual business credit cards out there that do offer better rates. You do have to qualify for them though. And perks. When I owned my business, I used a credit card for everything because I got such good perks out of it, truthfully, and a lot of money cash back. So yes, that's definitely something that you want to consider doing. All right, someone else is saying, is the cost of QuickBooks considered a tax deductible expense for a single member LLC? Yes, definitely. It's the cost of doing business. It's definitely a cost that you could deduct. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions. If anybody has one, put it in now. And as I said, my contact information will be on the slides. I'm happy to walk through options with you. I sometimes help people set up QuickBooks, and I can help you, set up Wave if you need some help there. But as you think through these options, I'm also really happy to talk to you about pros and cons about all of them. So you will be getting slides from this presentation and the spreadsheet that I set up that hopefully will also help you. So have a good rest of your day, everybody, and thanks for attending. Bye.